Hello, and welcome to Public Key, the podcast from Chainalysis. This is your host, Ian Andrews. Our focus on the Asia-Pacific region continues this week with my guest, Jivan Tulsiani, the head of marketing at Tezos APAC. Tezos is one of the more popular blockchain ecosystems in the region, so we get an insider perspective into the factors driving the grassroots adoption among artists, developers, and founders. It seems many are attracted to the low fee structure and the community of like-minded users who've found a home on the chain. Jivan explains the thinking behind Tezos' big brand partnerships with the English football club, Manchester United, and the Formula One racing team, Mclaren. We also talk about some of the innovation happening on the Tezos chain as they build toward a goal of supporting 1 million transactions per second across a diverse ecosystem of NFT, DeFi, and gaming use cases. Last thing before we jump in, if you weren't able to join me at Links Europe last month, then I have great news for you. The on-demand content from the event, including all new solution demos and the best talks from Amsterdam, is now available. You can find the link in the show notes. Today I'm joined by Jivan Tulsiani, head of marketing for Tezos APAC. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I've been a big fan.
Well, I love hearing that. Having fans on the show warms my heart. I always jokingly believe that nobody actually listens to this besides me and Steven. But, I think probably everybody listening to this has heard of Tezos. Tezos or Tezos?
Yeah, it's quite interchangeable, to be honest. So
Okay.
some say Tezos, some say Tezos.
Okay.
Tezos rolls much quicker off my lips, so that's what I
Yeah,
usually say.
Tezos. All right. Launched in 2017, or at least that's when the ICO happened. Catch us up. Like, what's been happening over the last few years, particularly the more recent history? I know a lot of technical engineering work has gone into the blockchain, but I'm kind of curious, like, where does it fit in the overall cryptocurrency ecosystem? How are people using it? Maybe just a high-level overview to get us all started.
Absolutely. So you can call Tezos a pioneering layer one proof of stake blockchain. It was one of the first, I would say. And in terms of what Tezos is associated with, it's a innovative and affordable and community-driven entry point for a lot of people who want to get into blockchain. So let me give you an example. So last year, when the borders started to open up here in Southeast Asia, I made my first trip to Indonesia after a couple of years. And, I was just hanging out with the NFT artist community in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. I was meeting people in person for the first time. So I asked this music producer called Scoot Beat. They create music on Tezos. And, I asked him, I was like, what's the sentiment on the ground like? And he said, Jivan, you know what? Over the past 2 years, especially in 2021, Tezos was the opening door for artists looking to create NFTs, looking to create art on the blockchain. Why? Because back then, obviously, Ethereum was still operated in a proof of work model. So Tezos was a more affordable option. And for every sub-community in the arts domain, there will be a lot of people in the community. So when in the photography community, it will be very vibrant. People minting photos on Tezos. The music, it's a very strong community. So it's like one of the best entry points you can have into the blockchain, if I can summarize it well.
This is a really interesting point. I'm a big fan of these grassroots adoption stories. So when you say, sorry, the artist that you mentioned there, what was his name again?
Scoot Beat. His name is Imam, but
Yeah.
so he and his friends, they make up Scoot Beat, SEKUDBEAT. They create music
Awesome.
on object.com.
Okay. When you say he's creating music on the chain, like, what does that actually mean practically? Is that an NFT that links out to a song, or is it something else entirely?
It's the song proper.
Yeah. And so the song is now stored on the blockchain. It's transactable. Like, I can buy it. I can send it to somebody else.
Exactly. Spot on.
Very cool.
And so they're also really innovative, like they created one for the Indonesia Independence Day. They create like a special song that's deep in the history of Indonesia as well.
I think most artists today, I hear them like, oh yeah, I have a SoundCloud, I have a Spotify, like I can, it's all streaming platforms. Like for an artist, this group that you just mentioned, like what's the advantage for them being on Tezos?
I would say number one, it's very affordable, and it's been
Yeah.
affordable since the start. So obviously,
Mm.
after the merge, Ethereum is operating at proof of stake at the moment, but Tezos was doing this from day one. So because of that as well, there's been a very strong organic community, I would say, Ian. When you create any piece of art on Tezos, there are very strong communities that you can bounce ideas off. There are very strong communities that you can be like, hey, get me a shout out, or collaboration. There's a lot of collaboration that happens between artists, not only in the same country, but also also throughout the region. So I would say that it's really cool. It's really, really cool. You can call it like the cool blockchain, where people who want to innovate, people who want to try something new, who want to have a strong community behind them. Tezos is the place to be.
That's fascinating. I'm curious, maybe rewinding a little bit, like how did you get into this? You've been in a variety of marketing roles earlier in your career. I was doing a little LinkedIn stalking before the interview. Tell us about your story, how you found yourself in the world of crypto and ultimately working at Tezos.
So basically, I have had experience in the military. I've had experience in sports, in deep tech, and then before I joined the Tezos ecosystem, I was at an edtech startup called Tiger Hall for 2.5 years. So basically, I want to get involved in all the hottest and the most promising areas. In 2017, I worked a lot with AI and robotics. This was the time where there were very strong conversations on like, oh no, robots are gonna take my jobs, and AI was picking up pace as well. I know right now it's on a different level because of ChatGPT, but back then AI and data analytics, these topics were big on people's mind as well. So I wanted to be at the forefront. I wanted to be able to shift mindsets and tell people, hey, robots are not here to take your jobs. Robots are here to complement things. So I got introduced to blockchain by my brother. So he is a crypto native. I'm actually not a crypto native, to be very honest with you. So as a family, we got our first MAYC. He really brought us into the world of blockchain. He explained it really, really well to me. And you know what? He's also got my dad into NFTs and stuff like
Oh
that.
boy.
Yeah. So then I obviously, did more research and felt that this was obviously the market was much more vibrant. This was in 2021. I started early 2022. So conversation started at the last quarter of 2021 and did a lot of research to see like, the benefits of blockchain. And then I also saw that, crypto, there was a lot of mindset shift that needed to happen because the news cycle kept being dominated by price changes and market shifts and stuff like that. So inside my circle of family, I saw that some people still found it difficult to understand what NFTs are and stuff like that. So I thought that coming in marketing for TZ APAC, it allowed me to be at the forefront of a layer one proof of stake blockchain. And it can also put me in a position to be able to shift mindsets and convince people of the benefits of blockchain.
That's neat. As I was researching the episode a little bit, diving into what sets Tezos apart from other layer ones that are out there, the one that really stood out to me is this concept of self-amending. And I have to admit, I think I kind of get it at a surface level. Like, oh yeah, you can upgrade without having to create these forks that you might lose half your validators, like we've seen in other blockchains over the years. How does that actually work in practice? You guys just went through a pretty big upgrade, right? Recently with the Mumbai upgrade, which I think ultimately unlocks like much higher transaction processing speed. How does that work without centralized control? Maybe walk us through what this self-amending trick actually is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really at the core of how the Tezos platform was built. I mean, it was built with mechanisms that basically ensures that there's active community governance and participation. You spoke about how do you maintain decentralization. Now, active community governance and participation, these are key components of Web3. It's the essence of Web3 essentially. So what this means is that users can actively participate by evaluating, proposing, and approving amendments to Tezos. So how this benefits, the blockchain basically is that it empowers the type of collaborative innovation that Tezos has established as, being on the bleeding edge of technology. So it's actually put Tezos at the forefront of the whole blockchain ecosystem because if you look at the kind of brands that are building on Tezos that have partnered with Tezos, for example, that's a very good example. So the governance and participation, getting active community governance, that's very, very important.
It's interesting when we at Chainalysis every year we publish this crypto adoption index, which tries to look at grassroots adoption. And interestingly, 7 out of the top 10 countries are in the APAC region, including Vietnam, Philippines, and China. I mean, you're on the ground in Singapore, and I think you get to travel around the region quite a bit. What's your take on why is there such an appetite for crypto? What do you think is actually driving that level of adoption?
So first and foremost, I would say it's grassroots. You are absolutely right. Grassroots adoption is really, really strong. If you look at Indonesia, for example, which in the Chainalysis list, for example, is top 20 based on the 2022 study that your team did. Let's look at Indonesia. Now, for example, we ran a campaign on the Independence Day for Indonesia last August. So we did a campaign to highlight 17 artists from 17 cities on 17 August. And Ian, the beautiful thing about this campaign is that the artist list was not dominated by the main cities like Jakarta and Surabaya, Bali. No, in fact, it was spread across the archipelago. So from Java Island to the Sumatra Island, it was spread across the archipelago, and they were from hill stations. They were from the rural areas as well. So basically, like worldwide, whenever you talk to somebody about Indonesia, they're like, "Oh, Bali." But it's such a vast, beautiful country, and you see artists from these places using NFTs. That's how far it's gone. That's how deep NFT adoption is in Indonesia. So I would say that that's something that we see a lot in the Philippines as well, in Thailand as well. So Thailand is correct me if I'm wrong, number two. Vietnam is
Yeah.
number one. Thailand is number
Yeah.
two.
I think Vietnam was top, Philippines maybe second behind that, but Thailand was up there for sure.
Thailand is top 10 as well. So it's great. So that's what happens on a grassroots level. And then what happens after that is that a lot of business opportunities get created. For example, if you look at TZ APAC, we run an incubator program that incubates startups. They go through a 3 months program where they go through mentorship, they go through workshops, they go through masterclasses. And then we see the kind of businesses that have joined our incubator program. And a lot of business opportunities are being created because of grassroots adoption. Now, if you look at Gaspack, for example, one of the businesses that are being incubated in cohort 2 of the incubator, they are here to make NFT adoption easier. So how can you bridge the artists operating on the grassroots with brands that are wanting to get into Web3 and wanting to engage their customers? And that's exactly the same that Hyperglade in Sri Lanka is doing as well. So I would say that grassroots adoption, in addition to the spirit of Web3 entrepreneurship that we are seeing in Asia, and then you couple that with increased interest in investors as well, increased deals, increased number of deals with investors backing these startups as well, it's a killer combination, Ian.
It's really interesting to follow. One of the things that got me pretty excited is some of the partnerships that I think your team gets to work on. Some of my favorite things like Formula One with McLaren and Premier League football like Man United. And before we start taping, you mentioned the Rugby Sevens involvement that you all have. How do you think about your role leading marketing for Tezos, and is that crossover into all these big brands? Like how does all that work? What's your strategy there? Why do those make sense for the chain, in terms of the sponsorships that you have in place?
I mean, first and foremost, these partnerships were driven by my colleagues in the global offices. So my role as head of marketing for TZ APAC is to amplify and to use these partnerships basically to grow our community for adoption of Tezos. I would say that first and foremost, it's definitely validation, because if you look at the crux of sports sponsorships, one of the main features of a sports sponsorship, and the reason why brands partners with other brands and why brands invest in sports sponsorships, the most powerful thing is brand association. So if you look at some of the names that you just mentioned, McLaren, for example, McLaren is a household name in racing. They've always been known for their innovation, and that's the same as Tezos as well. So there's a lot of mutual brand messaging, I would say. And then you look at Manchester United, the top two most successful football clubs in England, one of the most successful football clubs in the world. And then you are working with another pioneer in the space, but this time a pioneering layer one proof of stake blockchain in Tezos. So it's great validation, because it's all brand association. You're being associated with these very strong brands, and they are also being associated with a strong brand in Tezos. Branding wise, it's a very good fit, I would say. Now I put on my marketing hat, Ian, as you requested, and I see first and foremost, how can we use this? So for me, sports is a vehicle for me to shift mindset. So whenever you try to speak about NFTs to non-crypto natives, you need some support. Because when something is new to human beings, the first thing they do is feel uncertain. The second thing they do is develop doubts. So when you have their favorite teams or you have their favorite sports being associated with NFTs, then they're like, oh, wait a minute. I love Formula One. I've watched Drive to Survive. I know
Yeah.
McLaren. I know Lando Norris. I know Oscar Piastri. And these guys are speaking about NFTs. So why don't we get involved? So last year during the Singapore Grand Prix, there was a very nice NFT campaign, Asia-focused NFT campaign that we did with the McLaren mascot. It was really, really cool. And, people got to get involved with NFTs, and we built a proper story around it. And the main thing, Ian, that we wanted to drive was utility. So, with that drop, if you mint maybe a couple, you'll get some benefits. And these benefits usually are access that you don't get usually. So whether it be a Zoom call with a team, whether it be tickets to a race. So the utility aspect of things is very, very important and very nice to help our community, especially the non-crypto native folks, to get involved with NFTs that way. It just makes it more interesting, it makes things more engaging, and it makes things more interactive, I would say.
You definitely got my interest when you said that there were tickets available. If you minted one of these NFTs, I'm in for that. Uh, we've touched on NFTs a lot. It seems like Tezos is really focused on NFTs, right? Whether that's music or art or some of these utility NFTs. Is that by design, or has that just been where the community interest has been? Like, what's your take on that?
So Tezos, honestly, use cases range from NFTs to gaming to DeFi. In our incubator at the moment, we are focusing on three main tracks. So we are focusing on NFTs, we are focusing on DeFi, and we're focusing on gaming. Now, there are obviously reasons why NFTs, in terms of Tezos, NFTs dominate maybe the news cycle. The reason is because we're seeing the grassroots adoption with regards to NFTs, it's growing. And what that means is that, you mentioned Mclaren, you mentioned Manchester United, but even small and big enterprises in Asia are adopting NFTs because of the grassroots power, the grassroots adoption that we are seeing. So, for example, if you go to Manila, the Kalukan neighborhood in Manila, there's a 24th Barbers, there's a barber shop that creates NFTs on Tezos and tells its customers that, hey, get involved in NFTs with us, we'll upgrade your package. So, you can enjoy more services. And
Wow.
then you have Harian Kompas, which is the biggest newspaper in Indonesia that created its NFTs in light of its anniversary. So it took out the best photos from its archives and minted it on Tezos. And people who buy these NFTs, they get free merchandise and they also get to keep a piece of Indonesian history through that. So there's a lot of use cases like that happen, and then a lot of publicity gets driven a lot through all this, Ian. But I would say that if you go on to the TZ APAC Content Hub, you'll see a lot of businesses building really cool dApps, really cool games as well on Tezos. So it's a very wide range of use cases that you can see in Tezos ecosystem for sure in Asia.
Perfect. We'll link to that in the show notes so people can go check it out. Earlier, we mentioned the buy upgrade. This looked like a big project. The headline feature was 1 million transactions per second, which I haven't benchmarked Ethereum or Bitcoin lately, but it's a lot more than either of those can do, maybe even combined. I think the comparison statistic that stuck out for me was 1 million transactions per second would enable you to run all the global payment processing networks on the chain simultaneously. That sounds fantastical to me, I have to admit. I haven't seen anybody else in the blockchain space actually deliver on this. So talk to us a little bit about like what's been done there. Is this available right now? I think the upgrade completed in March, but there's still work to get to the 1 million transactions a second, if I read correctly, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that it's a big step in the right direction because
Yeah.
so Mumbai is also introducing smart rollups, which
Okay.
is like a new layer two scaling solution that's built directly into the protocol. And so let's talk about building. Let's talk about developers. Like what's in it for them, or enterprises or whoever. Let's talk about the use case side of things. Smart rollups also they enable dApps. So for those who are unsure what dApps are, it's decentralized applications. So you can benefit from the own dedicated hardware resources, if you want to process high amount of transactions like you mentioned. But the beauty is that you can still guarantee the integrity and security of the smart rollup. Because of this approach, that's how it worked towards the milestone of 1 million transactions per second in 2023 without sacrificing decentralization, which I told you at the start of our conversation is the ethos of Tezos basically. And then if you want to dive into a little bit deeper, a lot of very exciting technical features also, like fully decentralized and open interactive fraud proofs, guarantee rollup security and integrity, and WASM as well for those who are not very familiar, WebAssembly execution environment. So this allows for flexible development environment of a wide range of dApps. So advanced rollup features as well that simplify interactions like broadcasting from layer 1 to all rollups, calling layer 1 smart contract from layer 2, or transferring assets across the different layers. So there's really a lot of exciting features that are being introduced with Mumbai.
You obviously get to interact with a lot of the communities on the ground all across the APAC region. I'm curious, outside of your own project, what is getting you excited these days? What have you seen out there that's new and interesting or innovative that you're really looking forward to maybe coming out this year?
So for me, what I feel is going to be big is I really respect Web3 builders or Web3 entrepreneurs trying to make it easier for people to adopt NFTs. I'm talking about institutions, I'm talking about art fairs, if you're talking about NFTs, I'm talking about the end users like non-crypto natives as well. So I like what Akaswap is doing. So they are a Taiwan-based startup that's basically trying to make things very easy for institutions to engage their customers and engage their fans on all all things blockchain. So for example, if somebody wants to do NFTs, for example, it's very easy for them to do it in the Akaswap platform. And also, if they want to get involved with the metaverse, there's Akaverse as well that's very easy to get in. And so I'm very, very excited about Akaswap and the work that they're doing. And then I would also say that Hyperglade from Sri Lanka is also doing very, very exciting things. And some very exciting games are also coming out. There is a game that I really like. It's incorporating a lot of history. It's called Tanaji, Tanhaji. So they are based out of India, and Tanaji is basically a warrior in India. So it's a good chance to play an exciting game and also get involved and be more aware of the country's history as well. So yeah, these are some of the exciting startups that have caught my eye recently.
That game sounds fun. I'd love to play that. Well,
Yeah.
hey, just one last question to wrap up. I mean, from a perspective of Tezos globally or in the region, like what's coming out this year that we should all be looking forward to?
So I would say that our incubator programs are very, very exciting. So cohort one has just started. Let me just recap. Startups, they get incubated. They go through a lot of master classes and workshops to learn directly from leaders. They get personal mentorship session. They get attached to a mentor as well to guide them through the journey. At the end of this whole 3 months program, they get to do a demo day where we get a lot of VCs in the room, and they get to pitch, and the founders that get to pitch their ideas to VCs. So we help them with access to VCs, and we help them with a lot of insights and stuff like that. So cohort 2 is happening. Cohort 3 is going to happen later this year. So any entrepreneurs looking to build Web3 startups or are building a Web3 startup, even if you're more mature stage and you want to explore, you want to join the Tezos ecosystem, the very vibrant Tezos ecosystem, this is something that can really, really help you. And if there are a lot of investors as well who are listening to the podcast, if you want to explore and improve your deal flow with like some really, really exciting startups across gaming, DeFi, and NFTs, definitely check out the incubator. I would love to have you guys in the demo day, and you guys can meet the founders there directly as well.
That sounds exciting. I love it. Great place to wrap. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. Terrific guest. Looking forward to seeing more of Tezos in the coming year.
Pleasure is mine, Ian.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to another episode. Our team's been working hard to make our content available on all the major platforms. So do me a favor. Right now, take out your phone, head over to your favorite social media app. If you like, you can subscribe to our new TikTok, our revamped YouTube. You can sign up for our LinkedIn newsletter. And of course, follow us on Twitter or Telegram. Just search for @Chainalysis. As you may have noticed, Public Key over the last few weeks has had an APAC focus, which is aligned with the month of May being the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month across the United States. And as part of Chainalysis observance of this month, we link in the show notes to commentary for two of my colleagues, Pratama Arora, our Chief Product Officer, and Rakib Azad, our Senior Vice President of Finance, as they speak to their career development, personal experiences, and influences that have shaped them into the successful leaders they are today.